Cool. What are we working on? Well, you can switch back to the development update.
It actually makes it easier for me to edit when there's an update.
Ah, gotcha.
Well, at the very least, you can see our faces for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Mark, what have we been working on? Just lead us in.
Well, I need the slides to show what we're working on, right?
Just production. This is a live production meeting because we have those.
Working on stuff. New things.
Bam! All right, show us.
New things. So just going to, again, review the long and cold, harsh path to the winter update, which is coming at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of excitement internally on our team right now for all the things that we are cooking for that. It's going to be the biggest update of the year, right?
Oh, yeah.
Goes without saying. And in some ways, it's going to change a lot. It's going to big focus of it is going to be on the base building aspect, and the builders or the engineers in the game have actually waited the longest for a revamp, or for us to touch that part of the game. And reason why we haven't really touched it much, because we knew that we would come back around and do a major revamp there. And I think that this group that has waited the longest is going to probably have the best payoff.
Yeah.
I think it'll be worth the wait, right?
There's some pretty interesting things coming in this pipeline.
Yeah.
I'm
trying not to overhype things.
No,
right?
it's interesting because I just glanced at the screen, Matt's screen, and said like, oh, every update is the biggest update ever. That's not true, but it is true that like they're like on the big updates, it seems that like we're doing more and more every time.
I've heard that before, and I'm not sure where it comes from, because as far as I'm concerned,
We always say that.
the last big update was update 26 in terms of what we consider, right?
Yeah.
And then a year ago, with the Foundation of War update, that was a big
really
one.
big.
But the ones in between, maybe we just sometimes get too excited and we say,
So, like, there's a lot more in this than we thought.
there's a lot more in this update,
Which
and
is
things
true.
like
It does
that.
happen
Yeah.
often.
Right. But as far as we're concerned, like, last update 31, this one coming up, those aren't like huge updates.
It's the pre-winter update, so it can't be that big.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So,
And the winter updates probably carries the most content. Like update 26 was big, but I do think that there's more content, period, in the December update.
I think that the December update has more disruptive content. You know what I mean? Like things that really might shake up.
which update? The winter update?
The winter update, the 32.
I think update 26
I think update 26 shook up a lot.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to duke it out, have a vote, see which one is bigger when it's all done.
Yeah.
I'm only saying that because I worked really hard on it.
I mean, if you're talking about the sheer,
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
that
was a lot
It's
of
really tough to measure, because update 26, we changed the whole world. We made all the regions hexagon. So in that sense, winter update is not going to be that big, right? It's not going to compare in scale to that sort of change. But I think in other ways, it's going to be more significant, right?
Update 46 is hypercubes, right?
Yeah. I mean, we generally try to stick to like 2 really big updates a year, and then 2 medium updates, and the rest of them are just more like small, right? Just to sort of clarify that for anyone who thinks that we're trying to make every update
bigger than the last.
the bigger than the last is simply that's not our goal. So if that's the way that it's come across, maybe we just need to I don't know.
Tone down the hypeness.
Maybe we need to tone it down a bit.
All right, well, let's talk about what is going to be in update 31.
Let's just keep talking about how big it is. Update 31. So this is just going to be, some changes are going into update 31 in support of what the winter update is going to be. So it's not going to be, it's not going to be that big, right? It's just going to be a few things that we're going to be improving on. First thing is changes to combat. This is not a combat revamp per se, because I think that word is just gonna it's just going to be misconstrued, and it can mean so many different things. But what we are doing is we're going to be changing a couple of things, right? We're going to be adding a couple of things. The first thing is a cover system and a suppression system, right? And our goal here is to make combat more tactical and more team-oriented. So sorry to all the shadow dancers out there that still exist. We tried to get rid of you last year and didn't succeed 100%. And we're hoping this will get rid of more of that. But really our goal is we want there to be more depth in the combat. Our goal is always to be less like a poor man's version of Battlefield, and more of a cool version of XCOM, like a real-time version of the XCOM where the combat is much more tactical, right? So
positional decisions actually matter.
Yeah, exactly, and not sort of who ran out and was able to shoot first sort of thing. Right?
Imagine kind of like a real-time Dawn of War, right? That's sort of how the system feels from the outside to me.
God of War.
I'm not familiar with God of War.
Dawn of War.
Oh, Dawn of War.
Warhammer 40K Dawn of War. Also,
Dawn of War.
Right. And just God of War. I was like, God of War is real time.
I'm like, what the fuck does God of War have to do with any of this, man?
God of War.
So how this is going to work is basically suppression is gunfire near players will lower their aim stability and stability recover time, right? So if you simply firing at a player now will lower their aim and suppress their ability to shoot back.
Yeah.
Effectively, at least. They can always shoot back, but they won't be able to fire back effectively, right? This means that working in groups and suppressing other players in groups should, if things work well, should be really helpful. And just kind of running around solo and snapshotting is going to be far less effective. There's a way you can mitigate suppression though, right? And this is where the cover system comes into play. Basically, players behind cover will mitigate suppression, right? And there's various levels of cover, and it basically is determined by how close you are to cover and how much of your forward-facing arc is next to cover, right? So if you're just sort of one part of your forward-facing arc is facing cover, and you're not that close, then you'll still get a little bit of cover, right?
But less than if you were
Exactly.
actually tight.
And you can see that in the chart I have there. The first tier, it's sort of suppression is mitigated by 33%, right? If you move in a little bit closer, if you're really hugging the corner of a building as an example, right? Then that jumps up to 66%. But then if you're behind the ultimate cover, which would be like a sandbag wall, and you're crouched, right? Then it gives you maximum. Basically, you don't have no one can suppress you at that point, right? And there will be status icons on the HUD to show you what level of cover you're at, so that it's not something you have to guess on. You'll be able to get feedback. You will know if you're in cover or not. Right? Yeah.
But and that's the thing. In reality, you'd be able to tell pretty much whether or not you're in cover.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And another thing that I don't think was mentioned here that I thought was really, really cool that you told me was that other players count as cover. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. But the details behind it, we'd have to. Sorry, what were you saying?
No.
Yeah. But I have to review the details of how that works.
Okay. Yeah. I just thought it was cool.
But as of now, in the current version, it does count, but things may change. Things may change.
Cool.
Right?
Cool.
Yeah. So here's a really basic example. If you're out of cover, as you can see, the aim indicator. I'm not sure if the quality of the stream is high enough for you to actually see this, but the aim indicator is showing that your stability is going down as you're being shot. And when you're in cover, you aren't being suppressed. And finally, at the bottom here, this example shows that that like automatic weapons, like heavy machine guns and things like that, will provide the most amount of like suppression, right? So, which is kind of like an indirect buff to the HMG,
And SMG as well.
and SMG, and cool new things coming in the winter update. And here are two other pictures to show how cover behaves in these two other scenarios. One is if you're beside a building that counts as cover, and fences they don't, because you can shoot through them. But keep in mind that these pictures were made in an even earlier version than what we have right now, so it's not working exactly like this, right? So don't look at what's happening here and try to like extrapolate what
The numbers.
the actual like
behind it.
game balance is going to be. In fact, this is the behavior that you see here is actually very different from where the balance is right now, right? So just treat this as like a visual illustration of the functionality, but not representative of the game balance, right? So yeah, that's cover, right?
Nice.
And we're going to be testing this in the dev branch, and we're going to be looking for feedback, and we're going to be making changes in the dev branch as we see fit, and then we'll be able to test this out on live,
Nice.
right?
Cool.
With update 31.
This is exciting.
I think it's gonna change a lot.
At least I think it's exciting.
I think that not everyone is going to like this. We understand that. But it's something that we feel like we need to try to reach our goals with combat, right? Cool. Next up. Oh, wait, we're not done with combat changes.
No, that's just suppression and cover.
That was the main thing, right? So some smaller things. There is automatic grenade reload. So hopefully this one is one that everyone will like. I don't know if anyone's not going to like this. Right? Basically, grenades from your backpack will automatically be equipped after a grenade is thrown. So this is something that we changed. That we didn't change, but like a lot of grenades, like smoke grenades, and like stickies and all those things. We slowly made them not stackable as like a game balance thing, right? But we said we will come back around and fix that properly, right? So we made them not stackable as a short-term way to make sure people don't spam, right? Which was the problem. You can just sit back and like rapid fire spam these like grenades, which was not what we felt made sense. But so we made it so that they weren't stackable, but that was not a good user experience, because if you want to reload, you have to open up your inventory, you have to click on a grenade, transfer it, and then close the inventory and enter the next one, right? So instead, we've redid the way the animations work so that after you throw a grenade, it'll automatically reload, but there's a little bit of like a follow-up animation to make sure that you can't spam it that fast, right? But then at least now you won't be going through the clunky route of opening up the inventory and having to do that extra step, right? You can play the game much more like naturally now, and this works for like all the grenades, right? So hopefully that will be helpful. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because a lot of people were asking me about this, and this is something that we did spend a bunch of time working on in this last iteration, but I want to say that we did implement the solution. There were problems with it, and we're just not satisfied with the results yet. It's a deceptively hard problem to solve. It sounds easy. Oh, just make it so that your aim goes further at the top and goes further at the bottom, right? But the way that the aim is attached to the camera basically moves with your aim, right? Well, what we found was changing the amount that the camera moves also moves your aim, right? Because both of the two things are tied together, right? So the solutions that we tried yielded some really awkward like results that we felt was actually worse than what was there now. So it's something that we're going back going back to the drawing board, and we're continuing to work on it. But I just wanted to have this note here because a lot of people were asking about it, and I wanted you guys to know that it's still in the works. It's just not quite ready yet, right? Next thing up is squad improvements, right? So this is the first part of we said, as you saw in the roadmap, that we are working on better tools for player collaboration, and this is the first. We have laid out a plan, and this is the first part of that. There's sort of like three big parts to the communication tools, and this is sort of the first part, which is squads. And really what we wanted to do was make squads actually usable for coordinating on the battlefield. Right now, squads really are just there to lock your vehicles and use rockets and these other things, but they're not really useful for actually working together as a group on the battlefield, right? So what we've done is we wanted to do a pass on it. This isn't like some crazy like revamp that you've been like waiting for, but we have done a pretty large pass on squads, right? And the first thing we have here is the squad panel. So on your HUD, rather than squads being this obscure like hidden thing in the F1 menu and this kind of, it's really clunky, right? Now you have like a dedicated like UI, right? Like you have a squad panel that's going to be on your HUD and allows you to manage your squad from there. When you're not in a squad, it looks like the panel on the left there. So it just literally lists every squad in your faction there. It tells you, are the squads local, which means that they're actually really close by, right? And they, sort of like close to your base. The squads that are like basically like fighting alongside you, right, is under the local category. Regional are squads that are in your region, and then finally the global bucket shows all the squads in the whole game, right? And squad members are always visible across all regions, so it's not like the squads now where you won't really know if your squad mate goes over to another region. You won't really know what happens to them. Now the squad panel shows all your squad members, right? Private versus public squads. So there's going to be two modes. After you create a squad, you can turn it into a private squad by pressing the lock icon at the top right corner. That means that no one can join your squad unless you send them like an invite, which is kind of how it works now. We have a public squad, which is anyone can join, right? And so that's sort of the idea of a public squad doesn't exist right now. And we're hoping that will help out the more of like the random players and such. Squads can be given a fully customized name. So when you create a squad now, you can name the squad to whatever you want. And I know this is something that a lot of players have wanted. Just be able to name your squad is cool in general. You can add like a personal touch to it. So you're no longer like, stuck with these awkward predetermined names that we assign to you. You can actually name your own squad. And there's going to be full voice functionality, right? So you can voice chat with your squad. And, we're actually going to be moving this down from the operations feature, whereas at a sidebar, operations, we're actually going to be switching them off for now because that's the next stage of the improvements, but we weren't able to make it. We found because there was some like overlap, we didn't want to have both operations in the game and this new version of squad. So operations is actually going to be it's going to be on break for a while, I would say, right? And, it's going to be back soon. It's not going to be long, but we have some new features coming there too. But for now, it's going to be gone. Squad member names are going to be colored differently on the HUD. Squad leaders, right? So this is a new concept. So every squad has a single squad leader. They're going to have a special designation in the squad panel and in the HUD, so you'll be able to easily know who your squad leader is. right? If a squad leader is within 100 meters of where you are, they'll always be marked on the compass. We're also considering marking them on the map too, but that's something that is still work in progress. That might come now, it might come later, but we really want it to be simple for, let's say, a public group, for players to just know how to follow. Like, they should know to follow the squad leader, right? Even if you don't know what you're doing, right? If you don't know how to play the game yet, and someone invites you to their squad, they should know at the bare minimum, follow my squad leader, right? And your squad leader can be assigned to another player. So, if I'm the squad leader, I can assign it to someone else if I don't want to be the squad leader anymore. And if I leave, squads are ordered in the order that players are invited to the squad. So whenever the squad leader logs out, squad leader status automatically switches to the next player in line, right? So it sort of creates this nice stable order of operations.
Nice.
Order of assignment. So that's squad improvements for now. To be clear again, this isn't like, we're not considering this as the major the major revamp of the communication tools. This is just one step, right? Just to be super, super clear about it.
I have a question for you before you move on.
Sure.
How do you envision this working with operations?
Well,
Because as you were talking, I was like thinking about how it would be really interesting to have an operation comprised of multiple squads and stuff like that. But since we're turning them off, obviously, but operations are not going away. So that was just a thought that I had.
Yeah. So the way that we're sort of positioning this is that there's sort of 3 levels of like organization tools that we want to add to the game, right? And this is sort of we're starting from like the ground up, right? This is the lowest level. You're like on the battlefield is what you need to like communicate with the people that are in your like immediate sort of like surrounding, right? It's the tool that you use in your current session, what you need now, right? And then player operations, which is the next level up, right? Is the feature that we want. That's the time scale for that is not my immediate session now, what I'm doing right now. The time scale of that is through like multiple sessions. So if you're planning something longer term, you're going to be using that. And I think you said it, Matt, that like our goal is to make it so that you can attach squads to like your operation, right? Without going too far into it, because I'm not really quite ready to like talk about it. But that's one of our goals, is to make it so that you can attach your squads into like operation, right? And then above that, there's another system that we're working on. That's even the time scale of that is more like multiple wars, right? That's more of like organization tool for multiple wars, and that's sort of like the highest level, right? So we're sort of starting from the ground up again, starting from the ground level, and then working our way back up.
And
right?
just to be clear, it's not like we're taking them away permanently right now. We're just making sure we're taking them away operations temporarily, just so we can work on it.
Yeah.
While we have this new squad.
Exactly.
feature.
But there should be most of the things that you could do in operations, you'll be able to do under this system. Like if you just basically wanted a chat room with a bunch of people, right?
Plus, you can name them now too. So that does give that functionality.
It pretty much almost has all the functionality of operations as it is now, right? So
sounds good. Cool. I just was curious. All right, let's move on to the next thing.
yeah. So tech tree and facility changes, right? So first of all, tech tree is going to be automated, right? No more grinding for tech parts. And there's a little bit of history to this. We originally wanted the tech tree to be, this is like, when I say we originally, this means like almost like 2 years ago or like a year and a half ago. We wanted there to be a trade-off between like, okay, you use your upgrade parts if you want to like zoom ahead in like upgrading your like infrastructure. If you remember, we introduced that concept when a long time ago when we added in the facilities. But then we wanted there to be this trade-off between upgrading your tech or progressing in the war, but we never really reached that trade-off, and we found that what happened over time was that the tech tree became more of a mandatory thing that you just had to do if you wanted to keep up with the other side. People would sort of spend the minimal amount of their tech parts on the facilities that they needed, and then they would just put everything else in their tech tree, fearing that they're going to fall behind, right?
Yeah.
And so eventually it became more of like a liability than an actual like trade-off or like a fun thing. And we found that the imbalances that come from the tree ultimately has such a huge impact on the outcome of the war. And often players just felt like they didn't have any real control over it anyways. And it just caused all kind of like game balance issues. So what we're doing is we're taking a step back right now. And we're just going to say, oh, okay, it's just going to be like automated. So you don't have to grind for it anymore. And that way, at least like one of these like game balance issues are going to be off the table for now. But it is something that we do want to like reevaluate in the future. We did say earlier this year that we were going to come up with a new system for this, and we did try to come up with like a new design. But again, we weren't happy with it, and again, it didn't make it in, right? So for now, we're saying, okay, well, if we're not going to have a new system, at the bare minimum, let's just remove the problem of this system, at least. So
Lessen the burden a little.
Lessen the burden. At least the problem's not there. And in terms of how interesting is it, it's not very interesting. We understand that, but it's something that we would like to revisit it at some point in the future, right? Facility efficiency. This is gonna be a fun one, right? Because so there's a little bit of history behind this one as well. So basically, our goals are we want to better regulate the pacing of the wars, right? So the history behind this is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. We had like port bases in the game. Civic centers were really hard to build, right? You basically could never win the war in the first week. It was literally impossible because you hit the hard barrier of the port base, you hit the hard barrier of the civic centers, and that's why for a long period of time wars were always like 3 to 4 weeks, right? But even though they were long, we felt like it wasn't interesting because you basically you couldn't win. There's this singular hard like barrier that just mostly caused one player to just sort of stop playing, and then the other side was able to make like a comeback. And it was good because the wars were long and they were more stable, but it wasn't very interesting. So update 26, we sort of like removed those two barriers, and then everything at that point, like the whole game was like wide open. So if you wanted to win on the first day, you probably could. It was rare, but wars on the average have been shorter as a result. And snowballing was a lot more like severe. Sometimes like the night swings would be a lot more like severe. So what we really want to do is find a bit of like a midway point between the previous system and what we have now, where we don't want to say, okay, you just can't win in the first week, right? But what we want to do is we want to regulate the amount of like territory that you can like conquer in a certain amount of time. But we don't want it to be a hard barrier. We don't want to be like you literally can't move past this. We just want to make it so that it becomes harder and harder, right? But then if you just wait the next day, then you're kind of like back to normal, right? So it's similar to like a rest XP system and like an upkeep type of system that you see in the other games. So it's like rest XP in the sense of if you're not building enough like facilities, right? Then it'll actually be cheaper than now to make a facility. But if you're building too many facilities, then it starts to cost more, right? So how it works is facility efficiency goes down when facilities are built within a day. Facility efficiency resets each day, and this reset happens. It's like spread over like a few time periods. And how it works is the number of upgrade parts required to upgrade facilities is lower when efficiency is high and higher when efficiency is low, right? So what this is going to create is that if one faction is building too many facilities within a day, if they're capturing too many towns, if they're making too many fobs, then it makes sense that it becomes a little harder because you're managing a larger like infrastructure, right? But we really don't want this to feel like a hard gate, and we do want this to sort of be more of like a balance to the pacing of the game than we do want it to be like a hard gate like the old like port bases and the old civic centers were, right? So this is something that we're going to test out in update 31. We're going to see how it goes, and then as always, we're going to make changes as necessary, right? So that's kind of all I have to say about that.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Ready
I
to
think
move on?
that is.
I think that's it for the gameplay
Oh wait,
stuff.
there's some cool stuff.
Yeah, there is this. So if you want to just click forward.
It's your turn, Matt.
Yeah, finally, I get to talk. So we finally have a schedule for the first batch of the Chronicle of Ashes stories. So if you do not know what this is, it was announced earlier this year. It's essentially a series of short stories exploring the extended universe of Foxhole. So what that means is you're going to get kind of a view of like the broader world and how people live and things that other people have to go through. So the introduction to this should actually already be up on our website, foxhole.com, foxholegame.com.
Yes.
So you should be able to read the introduction. If you keep going, the first episode, which is called The Tower, is going to start releasing. Keep going. I didn't realize this was set up like this. I thought it was going to just all show up. Just like make it all show up. There you go. That's it. One more. So the first episode is going to come out tomorrow, and then 1 week after that for each chapter. Sorry, the first chapter is going to come out, and then the next week, the next chapter. The following week, the third chapter. If you hit right one more time and just go right to the end again, episode 2 is going to come out on November 30th, and then the week after, and then the week after. Right up until hopefully around this time, we will be seeing whispers of our winter update. That is the 2019 schedule for A Chronicle of Ashes. I hope you guys like it. It's a little different than anything we've done before. A lot of the inspiration comes from some of the stuff that Bungie does with Destiny. League of Legends does this. They have like a universe panel, and they do short stories talking about their different characters. So that's kind of what it's going to be about. I hope you guys who are interested in the lore get a kick out of it. I had a lot of fun writing it.